Oh, I need a checkity check. We good? Yep. Check, checking it. All right. Goes to MCS to build dampers.
Maybe the 22nd.
To end of this month.
He's got to have cats, right?
We'll ask him.
Yes.
I don't think they have to have cats. Probably valves. Valves would be trick. And then run them in the engine. We're talking about secret squirrel air-cooled projects with our good buddy Sean on the East Coast. Are we on? Is this thing on? Hello? 1 2 1 2. We're 1 2 and I need to move this microphone. Give me 1 second, y'all.
See so good. Old and shit.
There we go. Howdy. Oh, I got our that way. There they are. Our sombreros are in the picture. We need to take those to the next track day. So we'll give you all a few minutes to come on board here. Let me hit the chat real quick. Let them know. Exciting weekend. Y'all can get signed up for Smokies for next year. It's going to be a banger. Smokies 10. Dundon's going to try and bring 400 cars. No. Maybe not quite 400, but a lot. At least 5. Because Doug and John McClellan are for sure going. John's like, I want another crack at Road Atlanta in my actual car. Oh, well, yeah, kind of. Yeah, 2 trucks. Bring the K-truck. K-truck in the mountain. What's up, Mr. Jack Curtis? All right, there we go. Sorry, making an invite here. Give me 1 second. Okay, it's good. I always get in trouble with my wife when I'm like trying to talk to her and I stare at my phone and I'm typing and she doesn't think I'm listening because I'm kind of listening, but I'm actually typing. I'm not a millennial. I don't have that skill where I can hold eye contact with somebody and type and actually have a conversation with them and don't miss a beat. I don't have that, but you know. So what are we talking about this fine Friday afternoon? It's going to be hot this weekend in the Pacific Northwest. So stay cool, foo. We hit the GT3 RS with a hammer on purpose, and it's better for it. So we'll explain that in a minute. Mr. Matt Farah, love him to death until it comes to technical things, but that's fine. He has an opinion about a lot of things, and he dropped a recent video about how his car made more horsepowers on 91 octane than it did on 98 octane. It's only a couple. What's up, Doug Hansen? How you doing? Are you in Europe? Where are you, brother? What time is it there? Thought you were out of pocket. Your ears must have been ringing. We were talking about you, sending you down to that World Motorsports dyno down in LA with your car, just so we can see the actual difference between our dyno and their dyno, which we know is about 15%. But you know, we'll come back to Matt Farah's assertions and whatnot. Oh, you're just heading home, right on. So we can send you your parts. We'll do that next week. If you're just heading home, we'll send you your parts next week. Ramses has been asking me, so I'll let him know. Ship it. And you did look at his logs that he sent, his 91 octane logs? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so Charles looked at your logs, had no comment, which is always a good thing. So, you got it, brother. Will do. So what else? We hit the RS with a hammer. Next focus, we got the suspension dialed in. We made a revision to the upper camber links for the 992 GT3 and the RS. So we'll be rolling that out. I'll explain that here in a minute. It's because Porsche makes a fine automobile, but somebody was drunk when our car was QC'd on the line. It must have been Oktoberfest. Our car was made in, it was on the line in November. Been a late Oktoberfest. Hangover Fest. Oh boy. What else do we have popping? Lab Mouse. We got big plans for Lab Mouse. We're getting all the parts kind of put together. We'll likely here in the next, probably I'd say 10 days, you guys will see some motion on that. We had a couple cars we had to revisit. The 991.2 GT3 that we had in, that we did the tune on, that's super tits. She got cranky. It was a couple different things. For some reason, we're not sure why, the gaskets weren't in the system. What's going on, Eric B? Good to see you, brother. Gaskets weren't in the system when it was installed again, so that's unfortunate, which was promoting an air leak. We just prophylactically decided to change out the cats because we were in there, and get him some new cats just to take that out of the equation. We thought it might have been a sensor. It was having a sensor slow to respond code. Yes, we can talk about Wolf Pen, which is great. Sorry, I'm kind of bouncing around, getting my thoughts together. Getting my thoughts together live is always a little bit haphazard, but got his car dialed in. Charles drove it a bunch to make sure that it's happy. Tuned it a bunch, like 0.002 percent plus and or negative fuel trims, which is kind of absurd. A stock car isn't that tight. Yeah, this one, beautiful fucking car. And Eric's such a nice guy. I always feel bad when he has to come from Seattle all the way down here with his car, but we were 99.9% sure everything was licked, and now we're 99.99% sure that everything's licked, and the car is going to be super happy for a very, very long time. So, only got the door handles left to lick? Yeah, fair. And you got to be careful what you grab them with afterwards. Might end up with COVID. Vacation. Let's talk about the newest baby rat on the East Coast. This is, should call this the cystic fibrosis rat. That sounds awful. Not intended to be. Mark Granigan is the owner or part owner or something along those lines of Wolf Pen, a new service shop on the East Coast. So there's a shout out to the boys at Wolf Pen. Thank you for all of your media and what you guys are doing. Car is doing great. Oh, isn't that fancy? I like how you drop that right there in the middle of the screen. Very fancy. I dig that. It looks like it's right there over the, right here over my head. It's right there. Right there. So they did MCS three-ways and a full aero package on an otherwise stock GT4 RS. So stock tires, stock brakes. Thomas West, you're not wrong. The extra tuning hours were just an excuse to drive the car more. Yeah. It's like Charles is always he's always happy to drive a car, but after 30 years of doing this, it's kind of they're all nice cars. Some of them are nicer than others, and I gotta say Eric's car drives real nice. Eric's car does drive real nice. Yeah. So checkity check, you got him, Justin? Yep. Okay. So he's gonna work and talk. Because I keep looking over my shoulder and he's running commentary and he's just not on the mic, so may as well.
Squiggly lines.
Squiggly lines. Real tuning with a T-U-N and an E, not a T-O-O-I-N-G. Car tuning.
I'm gonna get a shirt that says sponsored by Acme.
I like it. Only old people would get that. You got to have your rocket-powered roller skates on for it, though.
I did realize when I clicked in here, I only got halfway through Doug's stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I just...
All right. So he is looking at your tune files the rest of the way.
The car's super happy on 91.
Which is a rare thing to say. So Wolfpen has, we'll call it a, I don't know, half rat? Something like that. It's almost a full rat. They were out at Road Atlanta. It was a hot day. They drove a stock GT4 RS, and one of the folks there did a 138, I think a 138 flat in the stock GT4 RS, the green one, yeah. And then in Mark Granigan's car, we don't know the tires, we don't know really anything else, or the state of the tires. I know that comes to be a big thing, but that's fine. He ran on 126.5. So, or sorry, 136.5, not a 120. He didn't go 12 seconds faster. That would be insane. He went a couple seconds faster.
That's what happens when I pull the brick out behind the gas pedal.
Exactly. It's like, oh, the car will actually go more than 10 miles an hour. How about that? And the thing that he said was the major differentiator with the car was confidence and predictability. The car wasn't surprising him doing things he wasn't expecting. Half rats are called snitches. Nice. Well, we're not going to call it a snitch. And I expect that as he got more time in the car, the driver of the car, he would find more and more time. To put those times in context, Ted went 128 in our GT3 RS. Seth Thomas went 128 in his 991.2 GT3 RS full lab rat. So we know the 4RS will do a 128 in a pro's hands. And probably the stock one, I'm pretty sure, is at least 3 to 4 seconds slower there, because it's 5 seconds slower in a pro's hands at our track. So we'll continue to push these through. The video that we made illustrating some of this did exceedingly well. And thank you all for liking, commenting, enjoying the video. It's kind of trailed off a little bit. We're about 2,100 views or so. I haven't looked recently, maybe 2,200 views now. It's only been out 2 weeks, which would be great. We've got another 4RS lab rat, all the parts getting assembled and getting ready to go to Texas. And Ted is going to go join Mr. Miner. It's Track Time is his YouTube channel, to help shake down the car and set a number for Mr. Randy Popes to come back here a little bit later in the year when it's cooler, and see how much faster he can go than the stock time he laid down on the car originally. So that'll be cool. That's going to be September 28th is when Ted is going to go out there. What else? What else will we talk about, Justin, that I'm missing? While we're talking about tuning, let's talk a little bit about, I'll allude a little, or expound on a little more of, we'll say it, caveat emptor, or buyer beware, or read the fine print. Something along those lines would be the frame for this part of the conversation. So Matt's 4.5 liter Spider, nice car. He's very happy with it. That's awesome. He was getting tired of having to run octane booster. Wanted Mitch McKee from M Engineering, one of the founders of M Engineering, to come out and retune the car and make it so he could run 91 octane. So cool. That all seems reasonable. They put the car on the World Motorsports dyno. This is a dyno that, hey, there we go. We've known this dyno for a while. It's a wind tunnel dyno. It has a, I believe, a Mustang all-wheel drive dyno that can be interpreted in the internets to read low. I'm not sure exactly what that means, because I guess by comparison, ours also reads low by DynoJet standards, if you're going to use that as the litmus. And all of that's kind of bullshit to us.
Ooh, can we tell him to run the car on 87 octane?
I like
It'll
it.
make more power.
It might. Actually, yeah, if 91 made a little bit more, then 87 should make a lot more, right?
Especially on 100 octane too.
It's a bizarro world. So essentially the gist and the claim, the clickbait claim was that the car on 91 octane made more horsepower than it made on 98 octane. And that's awesome. But the thing that I would hope all of our viewership would ask is how. Be curious. Don't just take it as, of course it's going to make more power on 91 octane. No, of course it's not going to make more power on 91 octane. Essentially, that means the tune that it was running on 98 octane was super fucked, is what that means.
Wasn't he running it on 91 on the 98? Like he was running 91 octane on the 98, 91 on the 98 octane tune.
What? Why would you do that?
Because he's from California. That's what they do down there.
So you'd run 91 on a tune for 98 and then...
It's fine. It's got knock sensors, you know.
Oh, fucking hell.
Unless they tuned it on 91, but it still had 98 in the tank. I don't know if they did.
So what I understood is it was a 98 octane tune, and now it's making on 98 octane, and then they changed it to 91 octane, and it made more power. Exactly. It sounds like it wasn't optimized for 98. The tune was so wrong that it, yeah. Anyway, don't believe everything you hear on the internet. Mitch is an awesome tuner. He is a fantastic guy. He's built a great company. I have nothing but respect for him. He's not a witch doctor. Thank you, Eric B. Exactly right. A Mustang dyno reads whatever the operator wants them to. 100%. Every dyno can be manipulated. The only thing that is important is relative numbers from the same dyno. That's all that matters.
All an eddy current dyno especially has a correction factor. So all superflows, it's built into it so you can manually calibrate it to know that your starting point's correct.
Right.
Which means you can set your starting point to wherever. So.
Yeah, you can move it around. I worked with a company that did tuning in the UK for a while, and they would drop the ambient sensor in hot water.
We did that on a car years ago. I was trying to show somebody that, and we took the ambient temp sensor from our dyno and set the correction factor to be based around the external ambient temp sensor.
Right.
And then I managed to stick it in the back of the radiators.
Right.
And the car it picked up like 180 horsepower.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it said the intake air temp was like 174 degrees.
Exactly. So then it corrects to 70 degrees or whatever SAE correction that they're using, 60 degrees, or I mean, there's like 100 of them now. So yeah, I am not going to shit in somebody's Cheerios. I'm glad that Matt's happy. I'm super happy for him that he has a car that he can drive and enjoy on gasoline that isn't an arm of the leg. That's great. Don't think that you can throw chicken blood on a car and make it work right.
Hey, Justin, can we send Matt Farah a box of Cheerios from Jamie? Ooh, even better, Honey Nut Cheerios.
Honey Nut Cheerios. What's up, honey? So Matt and I are both cat dads. We have some kinship there, so we'd be all right. We'd be all right.
One thing to note on the dyno thing that that I like to look at from the guy who has 17 logs open right now. For those of you that are curious, the dyno tool, sure, measures, whichever, great, it's good. I still like to look at all of I don't know if I have a good one here, not that I can display it. But yeah, all the squiggly lines on here, well, some of these you can get from the DME, and the DME in the car knows what's going on, even though they're generally programmed for emissions. But you can still look at things like mass airflow, fuel consumption, air-fuel ratio, and a car that uses more fuel at the same air-fuel ratio and air mass coming in, if the air mass is more, it's using more fuel and sees more air coming in.
It's making more power.
Those calculations generally are relative. Now, you just have to make sure that you can work with the ECU to unlock that power. Because sometimes with all the emission stuff, hey, here's more air and more fuel, but no, you can't play today. So that's always fun. But there's a lot to be had from, which is one thing I like to do, is know that when I'm tuning these, I was gonna say I guess
it's pretty much you now.
To know that, hey, I know the, like Eric's 991.2 GT3, even before the numbers got out from what it was making on the dyno, the logs say that it's making, 13.5%. It's using 13% more fuel, so it should be making that much more power, roughly. Now, the actual number based on what the DME is letting you do is sometimes can be a little different, but you at least know that it is using more fuel and running correctly, so it should be creating more power. So when you go and actually drive the car, it's actually going to be much quicker versus just hey, we threw a axle back or something on.
Yeah.
We pulled the OPFs out and it made 47 horsepower, but the logs are stock.
What's that? I can't hear you.
We don't blur them out.
Oh, we don't blur out our dynos,
Well, I like showing 6, 8, 10, 12 runs in a row.
Yeah,
so that it's at least not one phantom run.
The car's very happy. It traces Sharpies over it every time, 4 or 5 runs in a row. It's very consistent. Right. That's the other thing, is when you see a single run on a dyno, question it. And for all the folks who want to dyno test our parts, please call us. We're happy for you to do that. But if you do it the wrong way, and you do it in a way that the car is still, quote, stabilizing on the dyno, and they do, like we've seen, when you throw a stock car on the dyno, you do the first run, you do the second run, it gains horsepower, you do the third run, it gains horsepower. By the fourth run, it starts to stabilize. By the fifth run, it's very happy, and 4 and 5 are essentially the same, but 1, 2, and 3 are very different.
As the engine gets hot, there's a point where the coolant temp affects the air coming into the engine to where it will heat soak a little bit, but then you also have the friction from the oil, whereas the oil heats up, say from 180 to 220 is about 5 horsepower.
Right.
You'll gain just from less friction to spin the engine over. So that's just, you'll do some odds. Oh, hey, it's making 5 more horsepower when I change the air filters. And
right.
Sometimes we see 5 horsepower with air filter changes, but on well-designed,
especially when
the new
they're
air boxes,
when they're dirty.
But
Gabe.
Yeah, a 981 GT4, we do see power bump. Those are base boxer parts, as I call them, but we get that enough, I guess.
Yeah. So enough about dynos. We use the dyno to develop the parts. We do it in a way that we can repeat it for our own needs. And when we get anomalous data, either anomalous high or anomalous low, we're always curious what's going on.
I mean, we get it backwards where guys are 997 D4 kit, especially 997.1.
Yeah.
It's impossible to make that much power.
Is it?
Is it?
Is it?
Race your buddy or race him.
Exactly.
He's got 3.8 RSs. He's got a 4.0 RS.
Yep.
Prairie GT. I don't know. He's got everything, 918, you name it. And then he drove them back to back same day because he has them both and was like, holy crap. It is quicker. So that's kind of all that matters. It isn't what the dyno sheet says, hey, my car's making more power. Well, how is it when you drive it? What's the driving experience on
100%.
Which we did have I think we've had 2 992 RSs, dyno stock, put our exhaust on, and they say it makes the same power or loses power. One of them, somebody sent me the video. Somebody found it. Maybe it was Philip or Ramses.
Yeah.
And he raced his buddy.
And just obliterated him.
And he just pulled away from him, and he was like, well, how come,
Because the dyno was wrong.
It's like...
Because, just like you said, SC led exactly right. People get seduced by the illusion of quantifiable gains. And I'll just say it this way. If you're taking your very specialized singular car to a shop that doesn't specialize in that car, they're not going to dyno it right because they don't know what the fuck they're doing on that car. Like, to get an accurate number on a GT4 or a mid-engine car is actually really hard because you're blowing hot air through the radiators, which goes right into the engine as it goes through the dyno cell.
Yeah, while it's static, while the car's moving.
Yeah, while the car's moving, it's fine.
Comes around out of the wheel wells, and fresh air comes up over the hood and down and in.
Right.
And we've tested that, and it's 5 or 6 degree difference or so. from what I've measured, but 5 or 6 degrees isn't 40 or 50 degrees.
Correct.
We've seen.
And we've seen some guys have these things in the dyno cell, and it'll be 110 to 115 degree intake actual intake air temps. They're saying, oh, well, ambient was 70. And I'm like, I don't give a shit what ambient was.
What's the temp of the air going into the engine?
What's the temp of the intake air temperature, right, of the air going into the engine, because that's what the engine cares about. So anyway, sounds like we're bitching. We're not bitching. This is literally buyer beware. We know our stuff works. If at some point, if at some point you get conflicting data, then call us. Like we had somebody call us, hey, we did your 4RS intake. We didn't make any power. It was 37 degrees Celsius on the computer, the dyno computer in the dyno cell.
Yeah.
Which means
it's 97 Fahrenheit.
Yeah. So. An intake air temperature on a mid-engine car without any precautions was probably 125, 130.
Yeah, especially if it was just one run. If they just did the one.
It's just one run.
Yeah.
Hey, your physics doesn't work in my universe. Oh, really? Well, that's curious. I bet you my physics does work, but you've got something else that is governing what's going on. So, anywho, oh, we got more merch coming to the merch store. So, those of you who haven't been there, we have another store. It is our t-shirt store. We've been working hard to do this. It wasn't so much for us to have another store, have another website. It was more that we wanted to not have our back-end systems polluted by t-shirts, quite frankly. So we're experimenting with mouse pads, so you can see them there. So those would be kind of fun. We've got some coffee cup mock-ups that we're working on and testing internally to make sure that the quality's good. I don't want to get something printed and then send it out and kind of shitty. We've got wall art for your man cave, either on canvas or on metal. Both of them look pretty good. This is what's behind us. This is a shot. I said this, I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago. It's a shot that Justin took through the fence at Rensport Reunion this last September. So go to the website, check it out. Apparel.dundonmotorsports.com, I think, is the actual direct way to get there. Enough of that plug. We'll see as we get some of the stuff, you'll see us start to use it. I still want to make a fancy whiskey tumbler, but that's really low on the priority list compared to all the other shit. So I'll give you guys a rundown of so Charles and I had, I don't know, a couple hour conversation the other day about development timelines, what it is we're going to work on, what's kind of in the pipe. We got a lot of shit in the pipe. We've had a lot of shit in the pipe. Deck lid for the 991.1. The CAD work, I'll say, is probably 80-85% finished. So whiskey decanter and glasses, potentially. Still a lot of work to do with making a deck lid to the quality standard that we want to make it. We talked to one of our carbon suppliers, and they said, oh, well, you're just going to have to live with it being shimmed and potentially warped and these kinds of things. And we're like, fuck you. No, that's not acceptable. Nor will we accept that. So
you're just going to have to accept failure.
Yeah, you're just going to have to accept that you're going to make a part and it's going to suck. No, that's not okay. No, just no. So we will be sending, we've got a couple other carbon guys that we work with. It's not hard. I mean, Oris knows. He knows this stuff isn't hard. You can build missiles where all of the carbon goes together and it's not warped and misaligned, and you need shims to put it together. And a missile is far more complicated than a deck lid. So if it can be done for aerospace, and if Porsche can do it, then certainly we can figure it out. So first phase is CAD. And once we have the CAD, we'll begin to share that with you so you guys can see it. It's kind of cool to spin it all around in 3D space. We are going to include a factory OEM brake light in it. I think currently from the .1 is the plan, right?
So far. Unless
we have to pivot or can't find room for it. So the next things to do for the lab mouse after the deck lid is to, I'd say in the next 30 days-ish, I'll just throw out loose numbers, is to try and get the engine out of the car and us get a look-see at what we're playing with internally. Not release a video on how you save your 991.1. That's a much bigger endeavor, but we just want to know for our own knowledge, what are we working with over here? And do we need to rearrange priorities based off of what we find? Or is it in better shape than we think it is? Kind of thing. Yeah. So I don't think it is. It's yeah, it's doing 991.1 things. It blows big blue smoke out of it, and it's down a little bit on horsepower. Let me see, like 398.
Down like 10. It's like 393.
Yeah, so it's not bad by any means. I mean, it still feels peppy. Went 146 at the track, which is great. So, hey, how about that? It's all in the tooling, the ply stack design. Oris, remember that day when I said, you know, we should really start a carbon fiber company together?
It's like whenever somebody says we should start.
Just heavy fucking sigh. It feels like everybody's an idiot that we deal with. And I have friends who are not idiots and they're doing other things. Who maybe that's intentional. Yeah. They're doing things they can make money at, not doing the things that are a pain in the ass because it's really labor intensive. Anyway, suspension parts, all of our new suspension parts are going to go on there. Why did you need to hammer the 992 RS? That's a good question. We'll come back to that, Justin. So we're going to get all suspension parts, including MCS on and 19-inch wheels on the 991.1. We will probably take it back to the track at that point. I don't know if we're going to get all the power on it because we've got a very long-standing project which we are going to reinvigorate for the 992 RS boys. They'll probably get it first, and then we'll roll it backwards from there. But it's another Dundon exclusive. There's a number of those by which we can extract more power from the car without upsetting it. At least some of them. 992 GT3 was not that way, but
yeah, that one was.
Work at graveyard
more
shift.
Than torque limiting.
Yeah, that was fuck you. I'm pissed. So let's talk a little bit about the RS. 992 RS. It when Charles first got it aligned and we took it to the track, it was a little weird. One side needed more shims than the other side to achieve the same camber amount, and it was not by like a millimeter. It was like 6 or 7, you said, right?
Yeah, it was like 6 almost.
6 millimeters side to side, which is a lot.
It might have been 5, somewhere in there. It's still,
that's a lot. I mean, essentially that means the car is like this. If you put, get it right there we go. I feel like a robot here. I can't point it right at the thing. So very cockeyed. So Charles was like, all right, let me back up. We designed some parts to be able to achieve more camber based off of what we saw as what the limitations on the RS were on the side that would take less shim and achieved lower camber. And we combined that with the results that we had from our 992 GT3 about what we saw, and we designed some parts to be able to solve that problem. We got them out into the world, sent them to a few of our kind of pilot customers, Felix and Mike at Black Sheep, Felix at Saga, Mike at Black Sheep, kind of the two-headed monster over there, because Felix kind of manages the cars, Mike does the alignments on the cars for Saga, and we send some to Simon, Mike, and Cliff at Driver's Choice. And they put them on the car, and they're like, holy shit, we're at -5 degrees camber. Oh, well, that's a lot. I don't think you need quite that much. So the reason that things like that can happen, we knew when we were doing it, we were running quickly. The car was leaking oil. The car still had dots on it from us CFD scanning it. And we only did the check of the part on one side. We didn't actually load up both sides of the car and do the thorough check. We were going fast. We had a lot of shit to get done. We did it on one side. We're like, hey, Porsche builds a quality car. We should be fine. But that was always nagging in the back of Charles' head. He's like, why is this different side to side? So why did we hit the 992 GT3 RS with a hammer? Well, Charles took all the bolts out of the front subframe and gave it a good whack with a hammer to try and move the one side, shift it closer to the other side, because the theory was that the whole subframe was mounted in the car offset and or potentially cockeyed, which would have been worse. And cockeyed seems to be the more likely end result, because the rear got better when he fixed the front, which not exactly sure what the causality of that is. That's a little bit like we threw chicken blood at it and the gods just like did their thing. We called Mitch and he fixed it for us with a 91 octane tune.
Ooh, he does alignments now even better.
Hey, zing. So we have revised those upper camber blocks, and that will be part of our primary 992 RS camber package. Those things are the upper camber link, which shortens the distance between the upper control arm and the upright, so that you get more lean this way, and you can control that with shims. We have an extended lower inner control arm with longer studs so that you can put more shims in it to push the lower out. We also have a tension rod. Charles, could you explain to everybody what a tension rod does and why it's necessary?
What's the best way to do this? So, look at that.
There you go. It's even labeled.
Yeah.
And it's upright with, like, we marked the torque on it and everything. It's fantastic.
So the control arm sticks out from the car.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use some pretty...
That's the thing in the background there, for those of you who are looking. That's the control arm.
Silver, I don't know if Justin can highlight it. Anyway, that's the part that goes out to the knuckle, moves up and down. Well, you have load on the car that's going on the road, your wheels, you hit that pothole and your wheel doesn't just fly off the car because you have another component that is in tension trailing. The control arm's trailing behind the front of the car, so some places call it a trailing arm. So It's trying to keep the suspension components, knuckle, control arms, wheel, tire, brakes where they're supposed to be. So you got another arm holding it in place.
Yep.
So triangulating it, which some companies don't do that, but yeah, so that part takes a lot of load. However, it is not adjustable on any of the 992s.
From the factory.
From the factory. 991 RSs are sort of adjustable, but really the last adjustable is 997.238 RS.
I didn't know that.
Not the tension arm. Caster was adjustable.
Caster, with the puck. Yeah.
No, none of them have ever been adjustable on the street cars. So, yeah, but that's this does make a big difference. So on our car, we had more caster than I would have wanted initially, and you shim out the lower control arm a bit outward, and then when you do that, because you have the triangulated structure, so the tension arm, as you shim the lower control arm out, pivots towards the front of the car, and you're gaining caster, but it's also pushing the tire into the wheel liner. So this kind of brings it back. But I think from before putting the tension arms on to putting them on and adjusting it how I wanted the alignment, I think we took 4 degrees of caster out of it because it went over 11 degrees.
Right. Caster, a simple explanation is the position of the wheel well, position of the wheel and the wheel well fore and aft in the car. Is a overly simplified explanation for caster. The feel you get in the car with higher and higher degrees of caster is how self-centering the steering wheel will be, meaning how much on its corner the wheels kind of rise up as they're turning around, right? How much they kind of angle and then want to come back down. So in a sports car, having less caster makes the steering wheel lighter. You don't have to push it as hard to get the car to turn. It also, it doesn't self-center as quickly. So, you know, if you're going to drift the car and think you're a hoonigan and you're going to just let go of the wheel and let it do that, you might not get as much correction as you would. That's why you see a lot of drift cars running a lot of caster, so they'll self-center really quickly.
Yep.
They'll just like zing back. For our purposes, running less caster keeps more of the tire in contact with the ground when we're cornering the car. It doesn't want to pick up and like get up on its toes, so to speak. And it allows us to center the car up, center the wheels back where they need to be. Because I was surprised, even with, I'd say, normal amounts of camber on the 992, the way that they have the suspension geometry set up, you get a lot of camber gain.
Yeah.
Or caster gain from increasing the camber. So that's why the 3 components, especially for the 992 GT3 RS, which is going to see very high cornering loads and need more camber because of those high cornering loads from the aero and the wider tires and the generally more grip the car has. We're targeting on our car about negative 3.8, which seems like a lot, but the car likes it. The car likes it. And this is on street tires. If you're on Hoosiers or running slicks, you might need more than that. And with our combination, you can get there. You can absolutely get there. So, other things coming for the car. We've got rear inner control arms finishing. We've got dog bones, the control arms in the rear of the car. So those are finishing up. Maybe getting shipped soon from the machine shop.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be cool. And those are for 991 and 992, because luckily 991 and they're 80% the same. Can you say one arm was different between the 991 and 992?
The 2 uppers are the same. The rear camber arm's the same. It's the lower trailing / tension arm on the 992 is longer. That's what it is. So the inner,
is that
the
because
knuckle,
it's
the
wider?
knuckle side's the same. No, the inner pivot point in the car is, I kind of almost see it on that picture, not quite.
All right, almost.
They moved the inner pivot point in inner further.
Okay.
It's probably a roll center change.
All right.
The lower arm that's blurred in the back of that picture is the one that they've changed.
Yeah, the one that's a little bit farther away, not the control arm, the farther one.
Oh,
you
it's
good?
over here. He's just moving cars in.
Oh, right on. Yeah, right here. Kia? You gonna pull the key in? You taking?
No, don't worry about it. It's fine. I got other stuff. So you're fine.
You're live.
Bye.
Say hi to Ramses, everybody. Bye, Ramses.
Bye.
So that's why we hit the 992 3RS with a hammer. And surprisingly, it worked. Charles was like, this is all dialed into the car. I don't think I moved it at all. He went and aligned it, and it's perfect on both sides now.
Yeah.
So we think it just needed to get slapped around a little bit. Now it's behaving. So it's like a bucking bronco. It needed to get taught who's boss.
Go do some launch control.
Yeah. We're still in the middle of our reorg and inventory relocations. Oh, yes. And universal dive planes are a thing. There you go. Universal dive planes. Is that a 01 Civic? 05?
06?
06? Maybe. Yeah. So these are 992 GT3 dive planes on an 06 Civic. This happened to, who knew that Porsche borrowed a bumper curve from an 06 Civic? It's crazy. Anybody got any questions for us tonight? I'll see if I can regroup my thoughts about what I'm missing.
That's worthwhile sharing, but this is just a difference from same car.
Oh yeah.
Logs.
Yeah. Snap a picture of it and send it to
Justin.
Yeah. The red is fuel consumption.
That's the calculated airflow.
Oh wow.
I do have, which I was gonna bring in here. Let's see.
Doug's car or Eric's?
Eric's.
Eric's. Yeah. This is what's challenging for us when somebody calls us and says, "Hey, my car didn't make any more power," and we're like, "Send me the log." Yeah, it did. The engine says it did. I don't care what you're measuring it by, but the engine says it made more power. It used more gas. It had to make more power.
Yeah.
Fuel consumption is agnostic about what dyno you used. Doesn't care.
I'm trying to make this
Or honey badger. Oh, Smokies. Dundon word of the day. No, indeed. So we had to help one of our welders learn how to say no to his friends when they're asked, "Can you weld this for me real quick? Can you? I know you weld at work. Can you just? I know you have some time to do." Welder friends, when you work for someone, those tools are not owned by you. The parts are not owned by you. The gas is not paid for by you. The insurance isn't paid for by you. The rent isn't paid for by you. So the really easy answer to your friend is no. No. It saves you a whole lot of consternation. Send that friend to me and whomever business you might work for, and they can ask them. And likely they won't want to ask them. And so you don't need to worry about it anymore. Yay.
Yep. Let me. Sorry. Justin.
Got some stuff in Slack for you.
Actually, it's not uploading to Slack for some reason. So.
Of course not.
I am gonna just email it. Slow out the old way. Well, I did, but it's not.
Decided to slack off.
So I'm just emailing it because actually it's not. AMD. Yeah.
Boostain. So Aaron, Boostain is actually one of the better. I've used Boostain in the past. What's the one that you recommended for Doug as far as octane additive?
Well, most of them, they'll do the same stuff.
Yeah.
But there's Race Gas works and the Joe Gibbs one works. Those two I've tested.
Yeah.
Meaning tested meaning, hey, your car needed 110 octane and we did this and it didn't blow up.
Yeah, we did it and it worked and it's fine. Honestly, Aaron, for where we're at, the 92 octane, even with ethanol in our cars, works great. That's what we do all our dyno testing on. We don't buy the no ethanol fuel because in a DFI engine, it actually likes a little ethanol. It runs a little cooler. So I wouldn't buy special gas unless you're in a place where it's really, really shitty. And then you can.
There we go. All right, so those of you that are interested, this is a dyno, same car. I don't remember the same data conditions. I guess I could put the intake air temp. Let me see. Oh, wrong one. Where'd that go? Just for data's sake. So, manifold air temp.
Aaron, I'd be surprised that the difference from 92 to 93 is really making that much difference. I'm sure you're running a lot of boost in your Golf R, and it's built specifically for 93. I
see a little bit in the logs. I don't know.
From 92 ethanol to 93?
92 E15 in a direct injection engine turbo is going to make more than 93 E0 because the octane difference. One thing I would say is depending on whose fuel it is, I did test years ago.
Like Shell versus Chevron versus...
No, I did here. Arco, I did this on PJ's car.
Oh, shit.
Arco and Costco versus Chevron. And the difference was about 15 horsepower, but they usually have more additives in it, so they have less gasoline in it.
Arco made more horsepower?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, that's why I was like, what?
It was a couple degrees, 2-3 degrees less timing. It was just not happy with
it. Yeah,
like,
for
all
sure.
Right, we're done here.
Yeah.
But I've seen a few of the East Coast logs where 92 file, car's happy, adjust the file for 93, can add a little bit more in it. So, but yeah, I don't generally do a 92 to 93. I usually don't change them.
Yeah.
But anyways, the file So this was 2 different days with some of the parts and mods in it, but this is 991.2 GT3. The white line is RPM on the dyno.
Yep.
The red line is modeled mass airflow calculated airflow on the engine. Yellow is load. Where the line is in the middle where that dip is, that's where the large intake flap opens, and there's always a load change there.
Yep.
You'll see the dip on the dyno. It's not like that. That's just how it logs. And then the green is injection time. And I could show AFR and such. These cars are almost perfect on air fuel. They're about 12.65 or so full throttle, but this is what the DME is doing and seeing and having to calculate. So this is a major change here. I mean, we're talking...
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can make out the really kind of dim red line over the bright red line, but
yeah,
there you go. That's real horsepower gain. That's the car seeing more air getting in there, and it's adding fuel to be able to do that, right? And it's like throughout the rev range. What's the scale on that red line?
It is 500 to 1500. So the peak.
All right.
The peak is 4% or so.
Yep. Yep.
On the peak, and then at the middle point about 64, 6500, which is where the car has the biggest gains.
Yep.
On it. So the yellow, generally the red line is essentially horsepower.
Yep.
Because that's air mass over RPM or over time.
Yep. Yep.
And then the yellow line is essentially cylinder fill, rate of cylinder fill. So that's load,
which is
total actual
correct.
amount of air
Good
going in the cylinder, volumetric efficiency.
Yeah,
so, a turbo car, that yellow line is going to go up real quick and then just move over. And then the green is injection time, and it's telling you it's putting more fuel in. So,
yep.
But this is what I look at a lot of this data, not just what the dyno says, or I get data like this, and then the dyno says it's not making any more power. Well, something's wrong. And then sometimes I'll go and realize, hey, the dyno cell is 77 degrees, the intake air temp's 86 degrees on one of the runs, and then I go back and look at the other previous runs, and it's like, oh, it was 46 degrees. It was in the middle of winter.
Right.
Really cold. So,
Right.
Those days when we get that in the summer, because we don't get those cold days, are the days most people don't know. I'll actually come in at 3 or 4 a.m. when it's as cold as it gets here to run a car. So that way I have data from before that's, say, 60, 70 degree intake air temp, and I have new data that's that.
Right.
Because by the time we run later, even 10, 11 o'clock here.
Yeah, it's way too hot.
Yeah, we have a tree line, and about 9:30, 10 o'clock, sun's over the tree line, and the temp here just goes up 10, 20 degrees in about 20 minutes. So, but this is actual log data. This would be like turbo car log, and you crank the boost up and you see the difference in there. And you're like, oh, cool, it's running more boost. It must be faster. But
it must be faster.
This is on a naturally aspirated car, so this is and this. Just I don't know if you saw the dyno from this up there
somewhere.
And actually, what's impressive about this, I haven't told anyone about this.
Yep.
This is stock tune.
Yep.
To the full tune.
Yeah.
But both of these have the D3 kit on it.
Right.
So this isn't D3 kit tuned to stock.
Yeah, this is just
tuning.
the tune. Just tuning. On the existing.
Probably, yeah.
That looks right.
Yep. Yeah, so the top 2 lines there are
the green to the red is just the tune.
Yeah, that's what the log is that we're looking at.
Yeah. And you can see the difference. I mean, if you compare the dyno to the red line that Charles was talking about, if we were to scale that equivalently, it's pretty similar as far as the delta between them. The peak isn't as peaky, but that's because this graph isn't as compressed either. So, well,
one thing, if you can notice, the stock tune, see how it's a little choppy on that solid red, and the other one's smoother?
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of times that's what matters. So.
Yeah, for sure. We got some questions. They're rabbit hole questions, as I like to call them, because there's not a simple answer. One of them is continuing the 93, 91, using Boostane, not. We'll come back to that one, Felix. That's a good question.
What's the best VE you have seen out of a Porsche?
The Cup car.
Yeah, the Cup, the Cup, well, so far. I'm not done yet.
So far, fair.
So if volumetric efficiency, or VE, for those of you who don't know, is just a rating of cylinder fill. So if you have a 4-liter engine and it consumes 4 liters of air getting in, ingested, compressed, burnt, and exhausting again through 2 cycles on a 4-cylinder internal combustion engine, it'll pump 4 liters of air through it.
Yep.
So VE is essentially if you move 4.4 liters of air through it, which some people still to this day think it's not possible. Flat earthers, whatever. Not flat engineers, would be 110%. So older engines, old small blocks, 350 Chevy, Ford stuff, pushrod motors, all pushrod motors, which I don't like pushrods. You'll have an LS3 6.2 liter that makes 500 horsepower flywheel, and they're like, yeah, it's awesome. That would be like your 991 GT3 making 325 horsepower, not 525.
Right.
So the Cup car, which has full race exhaust on it, plenum, throttle body, some other bits, fully tuned Bosch Motorsports MS 6.4 ECU, which is freaking awesome. Which is a physically based system. However, it's the new one has 2 800 megahertz processors in it, and you can overclock them to 1.1 gigs.
Yeah, which is crazy.
In an ECU.
Yeah.
For comparison, those of you guys that do anything, a Motec M150 is 133, and it has 1. Yeah. So a little bit advanced. It is actually able to calculate, if you have all the stuff in there, how much horsepower it's actually making, or how much IMEP, indicated mean effective pressure. So how much power it's creating from the fuel that's being burnt.
Right.
Not.
It can do the mass balance equations to calculate from the fuel and the energy production of that fuel when you put it all in there actively as the engine is running. It can do all those calculations.
And then you have to have a friction model, which Porsche actually has a pretty good one in their ECUs, but the highest we've had on that, it's sitting, I think it's 145 or 146% right now. Yeah. And it does correlate because it's essentially making the MS6 backwards calculated from the friction model that I have roughly, and then our dyno numbers, it's making about 627 flywheel. Yeah. So to help people understand what that number means, essentially, if the engine's rated at 4 liters, a VE of 146% means that we're actually running 5.6 liters of air through a 4-liter engine and producing power from 5.6 liters of air running through the engine, even though it only can sweep 4 liters when the piston is moving through the cylinder. That means that the resonance charging that we've got going in and the suction wave that we're pulling out is creating a much larger differential pressure to make the air rush in and screen and get sucked out, so that it's not just the piston sweeping down that's pulling the air in. Yeah, and that's limited. So that makes, for the numbers, I mean, I guess I've got that dyno somewhere. I guess I can post that. Those stock make 470 on our dyno. 475 on our dyno. In the spring, it was March or April. The car doesn't seem to be worried so much about intake air temp. Well, it doesn't have EPA to it doesn't have emissions, so doesn't care. In the summer, it's 550 solid. Yeah. But that's 550. It stocks 7,000 to 8,000. It's like 470, 475. And then we're 550 at Redline, which is about 130 over stock. And it's 9, almost 10 miles an hour faster at the ridge down the street. Yeah, it's that car's a handful. It's a handful. And we've done this with, I mean, I remember looking at the 991.1 GT3 and them talking about the 3.8 liter volumetric efficiency, and at 400 wheel horsepower, they're comparing it to some of the most special cars ever made, the 458, a couple others. What about back pressure? Exactly. Yeah, there's no such thing. And so one thing to note on that there's some people say you can always find more power. I don't like that. I like to create horsepower. Yeah. And the exhaust that's on that car, as we know, is what I call restricted, not from back pressure, restricted from trying. I'm not able to, with the amount of power and the amount of cylinder pressure the engine's creating. Right. The exhaust system is restricting its ability to create a stronger suction wave. Yep. To effect in more scavenging. So there's another, I say 14 horsepower is what my math says to create from that. And then the intake, I think there's another 25 to 30 in a full intake system redesign, which gets us to 590-ish.
Yeah, almost 600 wheel.
So now we're talking 660, 675 flywheel.
Yeah. I don't think Felix...
And this is on a stock unopened cup motor, too.
I don't think Felix has had a Dundon Cup down there, but a stock Cup is still 470 wheel. A Dundon Cup is a whole nother animal. And, you know, there's been a couple that may have come through there. There's a couple guys racing IGT, International GT, with full power packages on their 991.2 cups.
We're the only ones that have it fully tuned, though.
Yeah, we're the only ones with the ECU because we're the only like dummies that want to spend 10 grand on an ECU to actually prove it out. That was part of R&D project, and we're still going to use it for developing some intake parts. Let's get back to some of these questions. It looks like Gabe has a question. You'll be ready to tune the RS next week on a dyno if y'all have time. Is the tune 100 octane or MS 109? How deep's your wallet, brother? I'd tell you run MS 109 because that shit won't knock. We've done that here, and you can run it right up to MBT. The car's just super happy. So I'm going to say this. You don't have our intake yet. You need to buy our intake if we're going to spend the time to tune the car for MS 109. I have one on the shelf. Let's get that done, get it to you, get it installed. Because otherwise, we're just going to be tuning a suboptimal thing. Aaron Marks. Oh, yes, there's a question about oil. I don't know the answer, honestly. I haven't looked at this. So the new GT specific 0W40 oil that is posted that...
I think it just has a lot more phosphorus in it.
Is that what's going on?
I think so.
Okay.
I looked at it a little bit.
All right. I haven't had any chance to look at it. I saw that it was required for all this stuff. And okay, you have it. You do? When did... I don't remember selling it to you. Okay, you got everything and you got the cob? Then we just need a log. We'll send you the file, go to the dyno, send us logs. I don't think actively tuning it on a dyno when it's 90 degrees is really as helpful, quite honestly, as you go into a track day and us doing it there.
Hey, Justin.
So I'll talk to Charles. But yes, we can help you get that dialed in.
I found it. It's in social media.
Yes, Ealing, we can make that big of a difference on an NA engine. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is...
Here's the... I sent the dyno to Justin for the cup with the...
Oh, yeah, the cup.
Oh,
it's kind of absurd.
So, you got to scroll down a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the dashed green is a factory 100% stock. And then the other line is some parts bolted on, kind of not fair. And then blue is what I just would call it the FFY.
Yeah,
it's everything.
100%.
Which it's
silly.
Pretty stupid fast.
It's just fucking silly.
You're talking at Daytona, you're talking about 30 seconds on the rev limiter. Most of the oval, you're just at the rev limiter.
Yeah, it needs more gear.
Yeah,
it needs more gear at that point. So. Yeah,
the in car was like the last time you were out in it, not Ted. Was you, not Ted. It was 167 according to the Bosch with you driving. So, and stock was 154. Yeah. Yeah. So that was with the full tune and everything in it. So
it's Cup car will get back on the track at some point this year. It's just it takes a lot of dough. It's not even so much the money. It's just it's
a process.
It's a process, and we haven't needed to have that car on track. We've needed other cars on track. So
hi, Charlie.
I
just say she's listening.
Right on. At what point would porting cylinder heads be beneficial?
You want the technical answer? No? Okay. so on a DFI engine, you need a lot of tumble, reverse tumble, for atomization, because you have to have the air moving a lot when it gets to TDC. You'll see where I'm going with this.
Yep.
When the piston gets up, you have this little bit of time to inject fuel, and then that fuel gets sprayed into the chamber. Well, the fuel's just going into the middle. It's not going everywhere in the chamber, so you need the air to move a lot to atomize the fuel efficiently, correctly. This is what took a while to get direct fuel injection in a gasoline engine at higher RPM to actually function and work properly.
Yep.
So on a good DFI engine, you've got to make sure the cylinder head port is designed for a lot of tumble, which a lot of times can be restrictive. And Porsche's GT engines specifically, they're all CNC machined. However, they're all designed for maximum velocity over the top of the valve for a lot of tumble. So that's kind of the restriction point in it.
Yep.
If anyone says, hey, we're going to make a 991 GT3 intake manifold to flow more air, it's kind of pointless because it's double what the engine actually needs. But
yeah, the valve area is way bigger than what the engine actually needs.
So the valve area is excessive.
Right.
For less pumping loss, so there's a % or two here or there. But the reason to change the dimensions of the cylinder head intake port would be based around more than just we're going to grind it out on the stock displacement, bore, stroke, increase displacement, go back, do the math. If we're just boring the engine out, there's a relative proportional difference
like
between
mass flow increase.
Yeah, basically bored out by 10%, increase it to say a 4.4 in the bore.
Right.
The valve should be 10% bigger, the port cross-sectional area should be 10% bigger. Roughly everything stays roughly the same, exhaust, headers, you name it. That's not how it works. Nobody does that.
Correct.
And then
that's expensive.
And then you add a stroke to the equation, and you go from 81.5 to 88.
Right.
I think is where we're at.
I think that's where we're at. Yeah.
And then that has a different set of parameters. That's more that coefficient. You can't, if you're not increasing your area, because in theory you can't increase your time area units there. So you have to increase it with valve lift. So now you're dealing with cam profile to get the same amount of area in it. But all of that is based around just.
We've done this rabbit hole on 997 engines, and you can take an engine rebuild that would be, say, $35,000-$40,000 to build your 4.1 liter from NorCal from those guys. And you can do that. But if you want to build one that's actually optimized, triple that number, and that's closer to reality. You've got a $120,000 engine. So
yeah, Roger's car is essentially
it's a unicorn.
It's a full 997 RSR engine.
Yeah.
But like we saw the build list, it was I think
it's a 4.2 liter RSR headed. And the question would be, are RSR heads at that point the right heads for a 4.2 liter bore and stroke? I mean, they're still really good.
They're designed around restrictor plate racing, which restrictor plate racing is, which all you turbo guys out there, every turbo engine designed as a restrictor plate engine. You just don't think about it because that turbo inlet, the inducer, is your restriction. You can't get any more air in with atmospheric pressure. That's when compounding starts coming into key. But on a restrictor plate engine like the RSRs, where they're limited, the goal is to make as much power as you can as early as you can. Efficient. That's very efficient horsepower. It takes less energy, less mechanical energy to create power at, say, 7,000 RPM than it does at 9,000. And then you want to carry that power out as long as you can. And it's going to peak, and then it's going to kind of roll off. So like RSR might make 450 at 7,500, and then it might taper to 425 by 10,000.
Yeah, which is great because it's tapering a little tiny bit.
So that is now you're dealing with pressure differential. To get the engine to make power. Like RSR cams, I think have 15 millimeters of lift.
Holy shit.
So I measured it.
No wonder they're 35-hour rebuild cycles.
Yes, yeah, those valve springs and valve seats, tie valves, beryllium seats, and all that literally take a beating.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day about valve motion and how you prevent heads from cracking and valves from getting beat to shit and all that bit. So
yeah, Roger's car, I would have loved to, which I wanted to do. Design a whole new intake because they had essentially RSR throttles, everything. It was literally everything they made for an RSR. Buy it, throw it in it, build it. Bigger bore. 4.2 RSR motor, but they took the stock cup intake manifold and the lower runners where they go to the head, they welded up, ground it out to make them fit the larger 55 millimeter throttles. So the whole and that was a .1 cup intake, so it's a 48 millimeter straight runner.
So it was a restricted engine.
So those on a street car, on a street 4 liter 4.2 on our dyno, those restricted about 410 wheel. They just it'll just peak and it'll just flatline. Right. So it was probably making 450 on hours, which means let me do some work, and it's probably another 50 or 60 for another intake designed correctly. But that's a one-off.
That's a one-off bro favor for that's just because we could, right? That's just because we could.
And Eric, the engine, the only one that I send out for a quote now is one that I can do over. It's repeatable, it's reliable, it's track worthy, it's street worthy. You can track it when it's 110 degrees out. You can run it on pump gas. Don't have to run it on race gas.
Yep.
Makes more power, a little bit more power than the 992 RS. It's about 485 wheel on our dyno. Stock's 350. And for that whole build of that car, gearbox,
God bless. If you were to
engine,
do all of it,
it's like
probably 150 grand.
It's 165 grand.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's labor, because there's a lot of, you don't just look in the Porsche catalog and throw bearings in it. You actually have to measure all the clearances and everything and go through it. Is it worth it? That car is 997.1 GT3 RS. That car pulls away from a 991.2 RS that's stock with a PDK down the straightaway. Not a lot, but it'll pull 5 car lengths down a half-mile straight.
Yep.
So
and honestly, the reason that we've gone to, I'll say, promoting 991.2 GT3 4-liter DFI engines is because we can bolt things to a junkyard engine from a wrecked car. Let's say you pick up a 991.2 GT3 engine for $35,000, $40,000, something like that, out of a wrecked car. You buy our D3 package, you put that on the car for 20 G's, we tune it with a Cobb, you're into the whole thing for under 60K. And when you put that in a 997, you'll have more horsepower than a $165,000 built Metzger.
Yeah. And
that's why we're doing it for a third of the money, and you can still get parts for it from Porsche.
Yeah, there's actually more. Well,
there's probably still more to get.
Is generally the main issue with building motors, even if it's just your brain process for, hey, this will be fine. No, you want it to be fine, but it's not. The other issue with that particular engine and those to get that much power out of them, none of those ones anyone builds at that power level have cats in them, so they're all race header built engines generally.
And the cars that we're talking about all have cats in them.
Not that they couldn't, but how much more money do you want to spend to get it there?
Right.
The 991 GT3, and somebody else can verify this, they built 29,000 variant 991 GT cars.
Yep.
And they built, for example, 411 997.1 GT3 RSs in North America.
Right.
So that's not many. So you're not going to find 500 of those wrecked ones out there. You'll find
and
thousands or hundreds or whatever.
And honestly, we're much more interested in continuing to build for a market that has cars than for a market that doesn't have any cars. And for anybody that heard Charles say that I will build you an engine for $165,000, the answer is no.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not gonna.
No, we're not building any engines around here.
Add a 0 and we can talk.
Yeah, hey, one more. Special signed, maybe even a pretty picture.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, y'all. Any last questions? We dodged the oil question a little bit, only because I haven't done any research. I will say this, that if Porsche is adamant that you need to use that oil, then you should probably use that oil, especially if they're going to do an oil analysis and be able to tell that you didn't use that oil, and then potentially say...
So they still have other oils, because they have to, at least in this country, that you can use on it.
But that's their preferred.
That's their preferred. It is, from when I looked, you don't need a lot of zinc in engines that don't have cast iron cylinder walls.
Sure.
So there's no reason to put zinc in there. Phosphorus is that sticky stuff that you wipe off all the engine parts. And that's what keeps them going metal to metal.
Okay. Enough
pressure will wipe phosphorus off, so you need to recoat it. But
is this a solution from 10 years ago that they're finally implementing?
Maybe more. Well, there's a sodium detergent, and is it a calcium detergent?
Probably.
One of them will completely...
They're both cationic.
Yeah, so one of them completely washes phosphorus off the parts. One of them doesn't.
Yeah, phosphorus is anionic.
Yeah,
so that makes sense.
One of them... I don't even know why I know this. I just randomly...
Chemistry nerd. Sorry, y'all.
One of them is good for preventing acidity buildup from combustion from the combustion process, from blow by getting into the crankcase, pollutes the oil. So one of them... it's like detergent soap with oil spills. It sort of dilutes and thins out the oil spills, diesel, whichever. So
yeah, it's a new oil 6-8 months ago. It came out about the same time as the 992 RS came out, what I remember, maybe a little before that. RS.
Yeah, it would be good if they could use, like, the cup oils. I think are, I don't even know if it's the same one.
I don't think
a lot of the race oils don't have the detergent, but they have to have the detergent in it. for the emissions and the high runtime. But
Right. Well, the thing that a lot of people don't understand is the total emissions impact a car has includes its oil changes.
Yeah.
And the frequency of the oil changes and the volume of the oil changes. This is why people are a little like, what the fuck? When you do an oil change yourself on a 9923 RS, you only get like 4 quarts of oil out, but the capacity is 8 quarts. So it retains 4 quarts and just recycles
if you let it drain for an hour, you'll get
over and over
almost
again.
6 out, but yeah.
Will you?
Yeah.
All right.
So
All right.
like same thing with the Metzger. If you just dump it real quick, 15, put the plug back in, you get about 8.5 out. If you let it drain for an hour, you get 12 out. Jack Curtis, if you're talking lucky bastard about his car, about the Metzger one, he still owns it. If that's what he's talking about, his comment.
Roger?
No, or either or.
Oh, yeah. So he's talking about Roger.
Okay.
Roger's Cup.
Yeah. Oh, he
Roger's
did sell
Cup. Yeah, it's
okay,
it's gone.
he sold it. Okay.
In a matter of a week, he sold the Cup and then he sold the NSX.
Wow.
He's like,
and then he
pop, gone.
Bought a minivan?
No, he's had the minivan. He's had the minivan already. So he probably needs to sell his truck and trailer now. So, anywho. Yeah, buy it. Sold. Q Bugs Bunny. No.
No.
No. All right, y'all. We got anything else from anybody? Otherwise, we're Smokies. For those of you who don't know, those of you that went last year and are watching and didn't get the email, they are doing a 4 o'clock pre-email to sign up for the VIPs and the guys and folks who went last year, and then the masses get the email at 5 o'clock. So anybody who wants to go to Smokies from the Northwest, please reach out to me before tomorrow and I can work to get you in. I've already put this in the track chat from the local guys that we all know each other. I know Doug's going to go. I know John McClellan's going to go. Potentially Christian's going to go. So we'd have an orange GT4 RS there, which would be kind of cool. Doesn't have but a couple of our suspension bits on it because Christian's a stock guy, but that's fine. We'll push that at some point. So we just get him
to drop the car off here before, and if it gets picked up from here, we just put all of our stuff on it and then wrap it and just don't tell them.
Real quick, yeah.
It all happened on the truck on the way.
It all happened on the way. As little elves. Elves on the shelf did this. I don't know what you're talking about. So, so Smokies is dropping, and we'll leave you guys with a bomb that we may at some point in the future make air-cooled exhausts. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe if they're easy. Love you, Sean.
It'd be boring if it was easy.
Fair.
I would sleep.
Yeah, you'd have a lot more sleep. You wouldn't have bloodshot eyeballs. So, all right, brother, I think we're out. Everybody have a wonderful Friday night.